Hey there, guys and gals. I promise this is the last day I'm going to be out. Even if I'm deathly ill, I'm going to come in for the rest of the gold days for the rest of the year. I promise. So, here are the last two sections of our foldable that we have to do. Proteins and fundamental reactions. So let's go ahead and get started. You fill in anything that you're missing. Okay? And remember, if you have any questions, make sure to write it down on the side so you can ask me when I see you guys on Monday. Because I am going to be in school on Monday. So, here we go. So, we're going to start with proteins, are macromolecules that contain nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Remember, if you know what the symbol stands for, you can just write down the symbol. So, nitrogen, N, carbon, C, hydrogen, H, and oxygen, O. I also want you to add to the end of this, sometimes S, where S stands for sulfur. Sometimes our proteins contain sulfur. Okay? The next line says, proteins are polymers made from the monomers called amino acids. So first of all, let's do a little vocab check. We know that poly means many, and mono means one. So in this case, proteins are polymers, so many made from the monomers, the tiny building blocks called amino acids. So when we talk about these guys, we're going to talk about amino acids looking like circles. So this right here is an amino acid. By itself, it is a monomer, but we actually can connect it to another one. Now it's 2. Now it's 3 amino acids, 4 amino acids, 5 amino acids. It continues. Now we have a polymer because we have more than 3 amino acids, and it is known as a protein. There are 20 amino acids that exist in nature, but 8 of them are essential for humans. Okay? Now, amino acids have 4 parts. Okay? The first part is called an amino group. The second part is a carboxyl group. The third part is a central carbon. And the fourth part is what we call a remainder group. So I'm actually going to draw a picture below, which is the same picture that you have in your notes. So we have a carbon connected to a nitrogen and some hydrogens over here connected to another carbon, which is a double bond to an oxygen, bonded to an oxygen and a hydrogen. Up here we have something called R, and down here we have another hydrogen. Alright, so the first part of an amino acid is called an amino group. The amino group is this blue part right here. So why don't you guys draw a box on your picture, okay, just like that, and label it amino group. Okay. The second part is a carboxyl group. So if you actually look at the word carb, okay, is the same way that we start carbon, and oxyl is the same way we start oxygen. So we're talking about this part over here where we have a carbon connected to 2 oxygens. So this is our carboxyl group. Alright, our third part is the central carbon. Central is another way to say middle. So we're talking about this carbon right here. Okay, it's right in the middle of our molecule. And then the last thing we have is a remainder group, R. Now, you've hopefully heard of the word remainder before in math class. Okay, a remainder in math class is kind of like the extra numbers that you have. just like a remainder group in an amino acid are the extra parts that we have as well. Okay? Remainder groups are the parts that decide what type of amino acid we're dealing with. Now, the last bullet point on this slide says covalent bonds. So we're going to pause right there. Remember, a covalent bond means that electrons are being shared. Okay? Electrons are being shared. They are not being transferred. Covalent means shared. Okay? Covalent bonds called peptide bonds link amino acids together to form a polypeptide. Poly means many, peptide means bond. So there's a lot of peptide bonds, a lot of bonds together. So one more time, we'll draw our picture. So we have one amino acid. This line would be a peptide bond. 2 amino acids, peptide bond. 3 amino acids, peptide bond. 4 amino acids, peptide bond. 5 amino acids. Because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amino acids, there's 3 or more, so that's poly. And because they're linked by these special covalent bonds called peptide bonds, it's a polypeptide, which is just a fancy way of saying we have made a protein. So, just to review, the remainder group, which remember is represented by the letter R, of amino acids have different compositions. They're made up of different stuff. And because they're made up of different stuff, they have different properties, which mean they have different proteins. When we eat proteins, we digest it into its building blocks. The building blocks of a protein are amino acids. And we use these for growth, repair, and replacement. Now, this little sentence, this little bullet point, okay, is not in your notes. So I need you guys to write this down on the extra lines that you were given in your foldable. Make sure to add this. It is important. Okay? Then we have things called complete proteins versus incomplete proteins. So complete proteins versus incomplete proteins. A complete protein has all 8 essential amino acids, whereas incomplete proteins do not have all the essential amino acids. However, if you eat 2 incomplete proteins together, they could add up to provide all the essential amino acids that you need. In your foldable, you will see these 5 words. You will see structural, protective, regulatory, contractile, and transport. So you need to write down their descriptions. So for structural, you need to know that the structural proteins we have are feathers, hair, and nails. Okay, those are actual proteins. Protective, we're talking about antibodies, so things like your white blood cells that protect your body against invading organisms. Regulatory, we have those hormones again. So remember when we talked about lipids, we talked about estrogen and testosterone, but for regulatory, those hormones are communicating between cells and other organs. Contractile allows muscles to contract or expand, which is a fancy way of saying movement, so movement. Okay, and because we have these contractile proteins, our heart can expand and contract, which allows it to pump our blood. And the last one is transport. And the special thing you need to know about transport is this guy called hemoglobin. Okay, hemoglobin you can think of as a life raft. So here's a life raft. That's your red blood cell. Okay, and your red blood cell carries oxygen around your body. Now, pretend that this is you and you're going whitewater rafting. There you are. Okay? In order for you not to fall off of the raft, you need to hang on to the raft with your hands. So, this is just like hemoglobin. This is your red blood cell. So we're going to do RB for red blood. Okay, here's the oxygen, the O2, and your hands are the actual hemoglobin. It's holding the oxygen onto the red blood cell so that it can be carried around your bloodstream. The most important thing for you to know is that these 5 things are the functions of proteins. This next slide gives you the different levels of organization, or how proteins can be folded. So, primary is the sequence of amino acids. So you can think of it again as that beaded necklace. Okay? Each amino acid is like a pearl connected on a string. That's our primary. Secondary structure is the folding. So you can think of kind of like a folding chair. Okay? Or the coiling, so think of a spring, of a polypeptide chain. So basically, our beaded necklace is just being wound up. Tertiary is a 3-dimensional arrangement of a polypeptide. Basically, this is what you need to know. It looks like this. I know, I'm an artist. Okay? And then quaternary structure is proteins with more than one chain. So, if you ask yourself, how many quarters are in a dollar, you would say 4. So think of 4 tangled messes attached to one another, and you would have a quaternary protein. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. The last section of your foldable, and then you are done. Fundamental reactions. So, the first type of fundamental reaction is called dehydration synthesis. Dehydration synthesis. So when you are dehydrated, that means that you are losing water, right? So you are losing water. So dehydration synthesis means that we are going to join, we're going to put 2 monosaccharides together by removing water, just like water is removed from your body when you're dehydrated. The second fundamental reaction is called hydrolysis. Okay? The prefix hydro means water, and the ending lysis actually means to break. Okay, so in this case, we are using water to break apart a polysaccharide. So to break apart polysaccharides by adding water. Okay, so think about it as your little brother or sister running through and knocking down your tower. You had a Lego tower, your polysaccharide. Your brother or sister comes through and smacks their hand through it. That's the water. And now you have a bunch of monosaccharides laying on the floor, or a bunch of little Lego pieces all on the floor, all sad and lonely. So, now your foldable is complete. It is time for you to go ahead and you can work on your homework. Your homework is numbers 24 through 41 in the same organic molecules packet that you had from the other day. So organic molecules review. I promise I am going to be in class with bells on, hypothetically, on Monday. Remember, Monday is the first day of Spirit Week, so it's Maryland Day. So make sure you're wearing your Maryland gear, and if you don't have any, make sure you're coming in your uniform. Okay, make sure that you're there. Also, if you have not signed up for Battle of the Classes and want to be a part of it, spots are filling up quickly, so make sure you sign on the sign-up sheet on my desk. I love you guys very much. Okay, I miss you very much. If you need anything, please send me an email. Can't wait to see you guys.